Welcome to the new year. You did it. I'm ditching having New Year's resolutions this year, and I'm just going to have a list of 24 books that I want to read in 2024. And if I don't read them all by the end of the year, then I will eat a big old bowl of mushy peas.
Ew, boogers!
I have been ill the past few weeks, just a bad flu, but my voice is still traveling between planes of existence, so I'll try to cut out any coughing and sniffling just to spare you. All right, I should get to it. I got blue light glasses for Christmas, but this is the first time I'm confident that they actually work. Do you see that blue light? My eyes. My eyes are popping. Should I just keep them up like that? Oh. Just gonna not. Even better. Right, the glasses were a bad idea. Anyways, this is a list, you guys, of 24 books that I'm going to read in 2024. I'm not going to lie, narrowing it down to only 24 books was a very, very difficult task. And there are books not on this list that I'm pretty positive that I'm going to read, but I just didn't feel like a challenge enough to include them on this list. There are a lot of my standard genres like fantasy on here, but I tried to mix it up. Like if I just stayed in my comfort zone the whole year, snooze fest, I tried to get a little bit of a variety. There's fantasy, there's romance, there's nonfiction, there's horror, there's thriller, there's some new releases as well. Let's get started because there's 24 books on this list, and that's a lot. That's a lot. I'm going to start with all of the books that are on my physical TBR. The first book is Educated. We're going to start off with a bang. I've been wanting to pick this up for ages. This is a book about a woman who, until the age of 17, was raised by her parents who were survivalists and believed that Armageddon was imminent. She was never put in school, never taken to the doctor. She did not even have a birth certificate until she was 9 years old. She decides at the age of 17 that she's going to college, and it's the first time that she's really stepped into general modern day society. So it's all about her journey of learning everything that we take for granted. I'm excited to read this book and kind of gain even more appreciation for education because it is so important. I just think that sometimes just a lot of times the American school system pressures people to prioritize and use their attention towards subjects that they aren't interested. Excuse me, I'm burping now. That they aren't interested in as much, The next book, I know. People are going to scream when they see this, either out of excitement, frustration, or sheer shock at the state that this book is in. Let me explain. Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Listen. This book is not in good condition. It's falling apart. I'm not proud of it. I will say it's not mine. It's actually a book that I found in the depths of my husband's glove box. When I first met him, he was actually reading it. As you can see, he's not the biggest reader, so he never finished it. He always said he wanted to get back into it. I feel like this book needs no explanation whatsoever. There's just one tiny thing about the cover. If you have seen the cover of this book, I absolutely hate that she's barefoot on the cover. She's armored to the nines in this picture, but her feet are exposed. I do not like it. It feels unnecessary. I don't want to see your toenails. The third book on this list is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I included this next because it is also a romantasy. I know that Throne of Glass doesn't really have so much romance in it at first, the series does eventually, but I digress. This book is a romantasy. This was this author's debut novel, and I guess I'm not on TikTok, but this author documented a lot of her journey writing this book on TikTok, and so it's kind of cool, I guess. A lot of people were able to follow her journey writing this, and her next one is either out or it's about to be out. I think it's already out. I think I've heard that it's kind of like Hunger Games-esque. So I'm excited about this. Speaking of Hunger Games, I would love to reread that series this year. I am not going to have enough time to read all the books that I want to read. The next few books I want to preface with, if you're new here, welcome. I live in Scotland with my Scottish husband. These next few books are books based in Scotland. I will give you 3 seconds to guess what the first book in these next few is. It's Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. If you don't already love Scotland, which I personally think you should, read or watch the Outlander series. season 1 and 2, I've seen them 3 times. I love them. I highly recommend them to literally anyone. Anyone. Just please look up trigger warnings for each episode because you never know. I have started to read this book. It is very thick. This is actually deceivingly small. This is, oh my God. This is almost 900 pages. So it is a big boy. It is a big boy, but I really, really, really want to finish it this year. The reason that I'm including a half-read book on this list is because I think I'm going to restart it, which pains me to say because Outlander is a historical fiction romance book, and it's got a little bit of fantasy in there, but it's mainly just like historical fiction. It is about Claire Beecham, who is a combat nurse in 1945, and she goes on a honeymoon with her husband, Frank, and they go to Scotland for their honeymoon. Claire finds a standing circle of stones. She touches one of these stones and time travels into the 1700s, where she meets Jamie Fraser. Please do yourself a favor and read or watch this series. It's so good. It's a woman from the 1940s traveling 200 years back in time. It's about Claire Beecham and Jamie Fraser. It's pretty cool. I'm talking way too much about all of these books. Another book that is actually quite similar that I just discovered when I went to Waterstones. It's called The Thorns Remain by J.J.A. Harwood. The year is 1919. This is also a historical romance, by the way. It's a historical fantasy romance that takes place in the Highlands of Scotland. And my husband and I actually lived in the Highlands for about a year and a half. The Highlands were absolutely beautiful, and if you ever have a chance to visit them, go. If you come to Scotland and you don't go to the Highlands,
what are you doing?
Anyway, Moira Jean and her friends venture to the forest for a last night of laughter before parting ways. The friends light a fire and dance, but with every twirl around the flames, strange new dancers thread between them, music streaming from the trees. The Fae have joined the dance. The front says, a Fae lord, a mortal woman, a dance with a terrible price, and it takes place in the Highlands of Scotland. Say no more. Say no more, I'm hooked. I will eat this up. The last of the Scottish books on this list is a little bit different than the last two. It takes place in Glasgow, called Paper Cup by Karen Campbell. What if going back was the only way of going forward? Rocked by a terrible accident, homeless Kelly needs to escape the cold streets of Glasgow. On her journey from Glasgow to the southwest tip of Scotland, Kelly encounters ancient pilgrim routes, hostile humans, hippies, book lovers, like you and I, and a friendly dog. What else could you ask for? As memories stir and the people she thought she'd left behind forever move closer with every step. Highly recommend you guys read it too, to be honest. I have not read it yet, but if you want to know more about Scotland, this seems to me like a pretty good way to learn more, at least about modern day Scotland. I'm literally only on book 7 and I've been filming for a half an hour. I need to get moving. The next book is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. You've probably heard of this book. It's about 2 people. That's it. It's about 2 people who were friends when they were younger and then they kind of separated. They became unfriends, if you will. They meet back up when they're older and they design video games, I think, together. And it's literary fiction and it's meant to be extremely good. It's going to be a movie soon, so I definitely want to read it. And the cover is stunning. Are you kidding me? Look at that. Look at that. The cover is stunning. My tower of books on the floor is about to fall over. So if you hear a crash, don't worry. It's just me and all my books falling over. The next book, how many times will I say the next book? This is book number 8, by the way. This is Insatiable by Daisy Buchanan. This book does not have good reviews on Goodreads. It's got cool sprayed edges, though, which is the first thing that drew me to it. It's a paperback with sprayed edges, which I feel like you don't see very often. Stuck in a dead-end job, brokenhearted, broke, and estranged from her best friend, Violet's life is nothing like she thought it would be. She wants more. Better friends, better sex, a better job, and she wants it now. So when Lottie offers Violet the chance to join her exciting startup, she bites. Only it soon becomes clear that Lottie and her husband Simon are not only inviting Violet into their company, they are also inviting her into their lives. I really like the image on the cover of this book because I feel like it probably represents the feeling that this book may give you. I think this book is going to have a lot of like taboo bits and bobs about it, if you know what I mean. It's going to touch on some interesting aspects of life. I originally picked it up because it just seems like a perspective I will never have in my own life, and that's half the reason I read. I want to experience things that I'm not going to experience. Maybe I don't want to experience, probably, but I'd love to read about because it's interesting. So, Insatiable by Daisy Buchanan. The next book on our roster is The Book Eaters. The book is by Sunyi Dean or Sunya Dean. I don't know how to pronounce that name. I'm so sorry. This book just seems so intriguing. It's basically about characters who literally survive by eating books. The Book Eaters. The characters subsist on a diet of stories and legends. Children are rare and their numbers have dwindled, so when Devon Fairweather's second child is born, a dreaded mind eater who consumes not stories but the minds and souls of humans, she flees before he can be turned into a weapon for the family, or worse. The last book on my physical TBR for this year is book number 11, Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. I read Circe. Over here. I read Circe, which is one of my favorite books of all time. After I read Circe, I just started picking up Greek mythology retellings. I just feel like a lot of the more recent Greek mythology retellings that I've been seeing are a lot about the females that have been forgotten or pushed aside in mythology, and I'm so excited that they're finally getting this voice from these authors. Circe was last year, Stone Blind is this year. This one is about Medusa. I think there is a hint of romance in this. I want to read it. I'm including a few 2024 releases, so books that have yet to be released. The first book on this list that has not been released yet is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I have read a couple of Ali Hazelwood's other stuff. So I've read Love Theoretically and I think Love on the Brain. They're part of her STEM romance books, which are very like rom-com-y, and I ate up Love Theoretically. I rated it 5 stars. I loved it. I would probably read it again. I'm not a big rereader. I'm going to blame it on being ill. I'm not a big rereader, so me saying that I would reread something, basically, if I give it 5 stars, that kind of means I would reread it. Bride is Ali Hazelwood's first venture into paranormal romance, and I was so excited when I heard that she was releasing this book because I immediately thought of Twilight and all of the vibes and the feelings that I got when I was reading that when I was younger. I haven't read anything that was paranormal romance since the Twilight series, so I'm really excited that one of my favorite authors is writing about it. There's an alliance between a vampire... The books just fell over, scared the shit out of me. A dangerous alliance between a vampire bride that bothers me so much. They spell vampire with a Y. No. Upset. Okay. Misery. Her name's Misery. Why would you? Misery Lark, the only daughter of the most powerful vampire councilman of the Southwest, is an outcast. Her days of living in anonymity among the humans are over. She has been called upon to uphold a historic peacekeeping alliance between the vampires and their mortal enemies, the Wares. Right. Okay. There are things that are annoying me about this description, but I know I'm probably going to enjoy it. If I don't, I don't. You win some, you lose some. Nevertheless, I'm excited. The next new release that I'm excited about is The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers. A young woman descends into a seductive magical underworld of power-hungry scholars, fickle gods and monsters bent on revenge to break her family's curse in a spellbinding contemporary fantasy debut. This is Georgia Summers' debut, and I am all about a good debut. The last new release that I have on this list is Lore of the Wilds by Annalie Sabrana. This book is a fantasy. This book is a romance. This book has a forbidden library in it. Are you joking? I'm gonna read it. Another author debut. I'm so excited about this. So many people jumping into their craft. This is really exciting. I'm just going to read a little bit like some of the blurbs to you. A library with a deadly enchantment. A Fey Lord who wants in. A human woman willing to risk it all for taste of power. Which, I don't know if they're going to play it this way, but I think it's quite interesting because normally you see like the female main characters. They're not usually the ones like searching for that power. That's not usually their main goal. So I'm very curious to see if the author in this book kind of twists it to make it so that the female main character is the one who's kind of power hungry. I completely forgot about a book on my physical TBR. It was just a little wee baby book at the bottom of the stack, which is why I didn't see it. Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I don't want to mess up this name. I'm just going to put it on the screen. Before the Coffee Gets Cold. A thin book about coffee. It's like magical realism. I'm in. It's also got a cat on the cover. What more could you ask for? Not much. In a small back alley in Tokyo, there is a cafe which has been serving carefully brewed coffee for more than 100 years. But this coffee shop offers its customers a unique experience, the chance to travel back in time. It can get better. I picked it up because it's thin. So like if you're struggling, if you're in a reading slump, I figured this would be a great book. I haven't slumped in a long time.
Oh no.
Now that I've said that, knock on wood. Book 15, In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is a memoir. I believe it is a book of short stories. Carmen Maria Machado was in a toxic and abusive same-sex relationship for a while, and this book is about her experience with that, but she throws in tropes and themes from horror. I have no idea what to expect, but I've heard nothing but good reviews about this book. I really wanted to read it, so I added it to kind of add more of like nonfiction. I only have 2 nonfiction books on this list, so I'm trying to spice it up a little. Going along with like horror themes, I think I'm going to read this one around October time. That's the goal. Slewfoot, A Tale of Bewitchery by Brom. Set in colonial New England, it's a tale of magic and mystery. Right off the bat, it could be totally wrong, but I get like Salem witch vibes. A spirited young Englishwoman, Abatha, arrives at a Puritan colony betrothed to a stranger, only to become quickly widowed when her husband dies under mysterious circumstances. Slewfoot comes in and is a powerful spirit and kind of just like shoves his narrative into this already complicated story, and the term witch is thrown around a bunch. It's supposed to be a bit spooky. It's on the horror genre side, but also fantasy and Halloween-y, so I'm going to read it around Halloween. The next one is Five Survive by Holly Jackson. This book is a thriller mystery kind of thing. It's a little bit horror vibes. From what I understand, they're all in this RV traveling like on vacation, and they're being hunted. And I guess 5 survive. I would presume only 5 survive. So we get to see how that unfolds over this 24-hour period, and we get a whole bunch of details because the whole book is just happening within this 24-hour period. I might read this at any time of the year because I'm just really excited to jump into it, but it would be a great Halloween vibe book. The next 2 are sci-fi, which is a genre I don't normally jump into, but it's Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. The main character, he's going about his everyday life, just chilling, prepping for a nice night in with his wife and his son, when all of a sudden, I think he's just like knocked out. He's just like, he gets stolen or abducted. I think he's abducted. Then the description opens up and gets a little juicy. It says, in this world he wakes up to, Jason's life is not the one he knows. Is it this world or the other that's the dream? I feel like a lot of us, I have at least, have thought about like, what if our waking life, like this one that I'm in right now, what if that's the dream? Has anyone ever had like a reverse dream like that? Almost very Inception-y. But I think a lot of people do think about that kind of concept, and so this is a book kind of about that. Excuse me. I think it's because I'm inhaling so much. What's the next one? Project Male Harry. Oh dear. Project Hail Mary. I'm not gonna lie, I've just heard a lot of good things about this book. I have no idea what it's about, but it looks like space, which is really scary to me, actually. You might be thinking, Allie, at the beginning of this video, you said it was so hard to narrow down all of your choices. Why did you pick a book that you don't know anything about? I picked it because it's sci-fi, and I don't read a lot of sci-fi, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. So why not just try, you know? Ryland Grace is the sole survivor on a desperate last-chance mission, and if he fails, humanity and Earth itself will perish. All he knows is that he's been asleep for a very, very long time, and he's just been awakened to find himself millions of miles from home with nothing but 2 corpses for company. This is giving me like that one Tom Hanks movie. What's that called? Castaway, where he has like only like volleyball for company. I watched like one 2-minute clip about like, it was like a montage about him with that volleyball. What does he call it?
Well done!
Tom Hanks and his friend, the volleyball, and him literally bonding while he's stuck on this deserted island for ages. And then when he finally gets off the island, spoiler, I guess, he has to abandon the volleyball. I watched that clip and sobbed. I'm too weak to watch that movie, okay? A volleyball was abandoned and I can't handle it. Anyway, back to the story. It's up to him to puzzle out an impossible scientific mystery and conquer an extinction-level threat to our species. Listen, they don't even tell you what this threat is in the book, and that in itself is intriguing to me. So I want to read it, and that's why it's on this list. It's on this list because I want to read it. Who would have thought? I'm getting slap happy. My hair is going everywhere. Exhaustion is overtaking me. Get my energy back. The next book I want to read is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is a fantasy book. Surprise, surprise. But it's not a romance. This book was published in 2015, so I'm a little bit behind, but I continue to hear good things about it. I think it's a trilogy now. It just seems really intense, right off the bat. It says, Essen, a woman living an ordinary life in a small town, comes home to find that her husband has brutally murdered their son and kidnapped their daughter. So that's not fun. Again, I've heard nothing but good things about this book. It does seem very, what's the word I'm looking for? Dense. It seems very dense in world building and being detail oriented. It's going to take a lot of focus and a lot of attention, so I will probably read this book while I'm reading some other fluffier things, but I'm still so excited to read it. It is more dystopian, which I am more a little bit worried about, I'm not going to lie. I don't do well with dystopian. It sends me into like an anxiety spiral. I'm hoping that I don't DNF this book simply because I feel hopeless reading it. The fact that it's a trilogy makes me think that there's got to be some layer of hope in it. I'm nervous to read this book, but I also want to read it. If I don't, I will eat a giant bowl of mushy peas at the end of the year, which is a nightmare to me. A nightmare. I hate peas. Mushy, even worse. I'm so sorry to anybody who likes peas. I just don't like them, and I never have. The next book is Get Dream Department Store. And I'm just going to put the author's name on the screen because I don't want to mispronounce it, and I don't think I'm going to get it right if I say it. So that is the author. This book initially grabbed my attention because look at the cover. This is one of the most stunning book covers I've ever seen in my life. The colors on it. This gives very Inside Out vibes. This book is about a town that is hidden within our collective subconscious, a store within said town that sells dreams. This book basically follows all of the characters that work or operate within this store. I don't believe it's that long. No, it's only 206 pages, so I'm going to whip through this thing. I'm really excited to read it. The cover is delicious looking. I hadn't heard of it until I was browsing through Waterstones one day and literally just saw the cover. I saw the cover from across the room and I beelined straight for it. So ever since that moment, my heart rate picked up a bit and I have been so excited to dig into this book. So this one was a no-brainer. I had to go on this list for me. The next book is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. A captive princess and a maidservant in possession of forbidden magic become unlikely allies on a dark journey to save their empire from the princess's traitor brother. This book is the first book in a trilogy that is inspired by aspects and epics and stories of India. Its main romance is LGBTQ, so I'm all around excited about this book. It's got the basis for what a lot of very popular romantasy books are nowadays, but it has elements that should be included in more romantasy. There are so many giant romantasy series and books right now, and I feel like they all lack what this is offering for us, which is diversity. For one, I'm really excited about reading this book, and I urge you to join me in reading it if you like romantasy books. The second to last book on this list is Legend Born by Tracy Deonn. This cover is also very enticing. I think I'm just drawn to vibrant colors. The illustration's also just stunning. I need to find out who did this. This is a romantasy. I bet you could not have guessed. You could not have guessed. But it's a young adult romantasy, which most of them, I think, on this list so far have not been. I'm not the biggest young adult reader. This book follows 16-year-old Bree Matthews, whose mother unfortunately passes away. She goes to a school, I think it's like a private school, like you live there as well. Some fantastical stuff happens that she's not meant to see, so a magical boy tries to erase her memory, but in attempting to erase her memory and failing, he unlocks her own magical powers. And we kind of follow her story from there. It's really exciting, and like a lot of the books on this list, I've heard nothing but good things. And last but definitely not least is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I have been waiting to read this book for ages. I wasn't waiting on anything specific. I've just not been able to find this book in a bookstore and have been avoiding ordering it. I'd rather buy books in person. And this is a contemporary romance fiction with like magical realism in it, but basically it's about this apartment that can travel in time 7 years, and it's a romance from there. I think that's really all you need to know. It's a time travel romance trope. And if you were here about 100 minutes ago when I was talking about Outlander. You know I like a good time travel romance trope. And again, heard nothing but good things. That's the theme of this list. I've heard nothing but good things about these books, so I'm going to read them. I did it, I did it, I did it. Those are all of the 24 books on my list of books that I'm reading in the 24th year of the 21st century. So subscribe if you want to follow along with that journey. Let me know if any of these are on your TBR, what books maybe I should prioritize, because who knows, I might not read them all, and I might have to eat a giant big bowl of mushy peas. Why have I put this ultimatum on myself? Unnecessary pressure. I never plan any outros, so I'll see you next time. Mwah. Happy reading, you silly goose. I am malfunctioning.